Reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. So we're here at the Elder Scrolls event, and we've got lots to talk about. We had a great day today getting to play the game, which was unexpected. So before we get going, can you introduce yourself and let our listeners know what it is that you do on the team?
Well, I'm Paul Sage. I'm the creative director for Elder Scrolls Online, and I direct creativity.
That sounds like a fun job to have, actually.
Yeah, it is very fun day to day.
Awesome. So let's get right into the nitty-gritty of it and talk about the game itself. I had a lot of fun today playing through as a Templar, and really enjoyed some of the different aspects of it. So the combat system, it's very similar to Skyrim. Can you give us a few details of how it's similar and maybe a few things that are a little bit different?
Sure. So when we started out with our combat system, one of the big things that we wanted to do was we want to challenge your typical MMO combat systems and put it more into the framework of Skyrim or any of the other Elder Scrolls like Oblivion. And, the big thing for us was left mouse button clicks. Right mouse button, blocks, so you hold down your left mouse button, it's a stronger attack. And we thought that, that was really good and that felt really compelling. And then we said, well, how do we build on that? And, we can't pause the way you can in a single player game. And so that's why we have the shortcut bar we have is we want you to have easy access to all of your abilities, all of your spells, all of your advanced weapon attacks. And so kind of the way it differs is that you do have that bar there, but it's there for accessibility and to keep things flowing and moving. And unlike a use-based system that you kind of get in Skyrim or Oblivion, this works out where if you have it slotted, if you've decided this is what's important to me to use, then you gain expertise in it. And as you gain expertise, the abilities get stronger and stronger. Or there's a morph opportunity where you really get to say, hey, maybe it's I jump to something, and then, well, maybe I can jump further at the morph if I decide that's what I want to do, or maybe I stun things as I jump there, So those, the progression of it is quite a bit different, but it still feels very good. You played it, so it feels like it's a natural evolution of an Elder Scrolls game.
Yeah, it feels like combat in Elder Scrolls. You talked about the abilities on the bar. Is there any benefit to using ability more as far as the progression of it goes? Or once it's on that bar, you get the same whether you use it or whether you're just having it there to level it up?
It's the same. If you decide it's important to you, you just put it on that bar and then it will level up. The same is true with weapons. And there are abilities that go with weapons that if you put on that bar, then they will as well add to your expertise in that weapon.
And you can also change your left and right mouse buttons as well as you level up the weapons, right?
Well, that's something that we're going to be looking at. We think that we like the way it is, but we want to add it to where if you have a special ability with, say, a two-handed sword, then as we've played, even internally, we've decided, well, we want to put that on that action bar because that really helps meet that fantasy of I don't want to be a magic-using warrior, I just want to be a flat-out warrior.
Mm-hmm. So with the class abilities, because you also have the different classes that are there, with the class abilities, do you see those as really core to the combat as well as the weapon skills? Like, are they as important as the weapons you're choosing to use?
Absolutely. The idea is that you get to play the way you want to play, but those core class abilities, those really start to help you define the roles you want to take. And when we've designed each of our classes, we've designed them with the idea that there may be 3 specific roles or lines that where that matches up to a certain fantasy role. So, for instance, one of the common terms is tanking. If you want abilities that will match and help you, we actually have a line that helps you hit into that. So we want to encourage grouping, and one of the best ways to do that is to allow you to take the role you want to take.
So continuing on with that role, is that there will be a typical system that you've seen in MMOs of a tank, DPS, and healer?
I wouldn't say it's all typical. That's one of the other challenges we had. But we do like the ability for you to be able to fit into a group really well. And so You could, as you know, you heard today, you could take on a healing staff, for instance, and take on a healing role that's not related to your class. But once you start to get into your class abilities, that's where you really become the expert. And so that's where you will take on some of those heavier roles, for sure.
And so anyone can pick up any weapon, use it, can pick up any piece of armor, and you're looking at making that open as well.
Right.
How does that change the gameplay?
It changed it a lot. So that was one of those things as we kept refining the system that we came around and said, this is good. This is what we want people to do. And where I think it changes the gameplay most is when you look at, I kind of want to be using my magic more in this role, then I'm going to wear light armor because it's going to have bonuses to that. And you know, again, it's a game about building up your skills so you have a lot of opportunity to kind of slot things the way you want to slot it and play. Maybe you want to play differently the next night, but your armor choice will help that as well, because it'll be things like your heavy armor. Will work out to where you can absorb more damage if you want to wear it, but maybe that's not the best for Magicka. And so those are the trade-offs you'll make, and it's important to us to get those trade-offs right.
And from a philosophical perspective, how important do you think it is, or are you not something that you're worried about, looking at min-maxers in the game and theory crafters finding the one build for a Templar to have?
I think that'll be really interesting as it progresses, right? You know, it's one of those things, when you put the game in the player's hands, you start to see things that you never even foresaw as a designer. And while we want to make sure it's accessible, I also kind of like when people feel like they've won or they've cheated, because you know within that next 2 weeks there's going to be the other guy who finds that next role. It's like, no, this is the way to do it, and this is the way to do it. And so I would not say it's going to be the game where you're theory crafting all the time or you feel like you have to theory craft. But if you do, then I think you're going to find a way that it's like, okay, this is super exciting. I feel like I've got the winning build.
Awesome. So I'm sure it changes all the time, but let's say right now, what is your favorite class and setup that you like to do when you're playing on your own time? When it's not for a specific reason, you're jumping in game, what do you like to do?
So we're still at a place where we haven't finished all of our classes, but the class I tend to gravitate towards is I would say probably Dragon Knight at this point, and the reason is just because that hits me. You know, kind of in that I like using the ability where I get to pull people to me. You know, I get to separate out the crowd. I get to tank if I want to tank, or I get to be high DPS if I want DPS. So that's a role I really find satisfying. And so for me right now, that's where I am. I will say that I kind of am leaning towards one that's in the works right now, which is the Warden. And, you know, we won't talk much about it, but when it comes out, I think that's going to be the one I gravitate towards.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thanks a lot for coming out today.